You're listening to the Live Out Loud podcast with River Wynn and Michele Flamer.
Hi, River.
Hi, Michele.
You know what I realized today?
What's up?
That I get jealous of myself. No, I get excited, but I also get like spoiled when we get to do 2 episodes in one day.
I know it's fun. It's like we get to spend the whole morning together,
Mm-hmm.
which still sometimes blows my mind that we've been friends for 3 years and we have only been in person one time, but yet, we're hanging out every weekend on Zoom.
I know, it's crazy. Well, plus, and sharing memes literally every day.
On the phone and Marco
Texting and on the
Polo.
phone and FaceTime. I mean, it's a
A
whole digital
whole
friendship
thing.
happening
Yep.
here.
Yep.
So today, I had this question of like interesting about permission to rewild is the topic today. Unlearning the tame, reclaiming the wild. So like what happens when you stop editing yourself for comfort and start living from instinct, mess, and magic? In this episode, what we're going to explore is kind of what it means to rewild your life emotionally, spiritually, creatively. I don't know why I can't say that. Business, from letting go of social expectations to rediscovering the power of your inner animal. And what is your inner animal? Has it changed? I was going to
I
say like
mean,
wolf,
I was
deer, bear,
immediately
hummingbird.
thinking, I was immediately thinking of, I don't know if you've done one, but I've done a soul retrieval or a power animal retrieval with Angela, where she goes in and our dear shaman friend Angela, who goes in and basically connects you with like your animal guide, like the archetypal animal that, serves you as a guide. And when I did mine with her, it was like very clearly a blue heron. Blue heron has been my, you know, guide for my entire life. But I've also had other ones come along in very organic ways. Like in the last year, I've had two very distinct dreams where an animal came to me. And the first one was a white snake, which is a sign of Kundalini awakening, is a white snake.
Mhm.
And it was a very powerful, vivid
I
dream.
remember that dream. That was in the last year. That was
Yes.
like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, it was further out. No, I don't know
Yeah.
if it was 2.5 years, but it was further out. But yeah, that was a very powerful dream, and the snake has spoken to me a lot. I take a lot of wisdom from that archetype. And then about a year ago, yeah, I had a female cougar come to me in a dream, which was very powerful as well, because female cougars raise their babies alone.
I didn't know
They're single
that.
moms. They're single moms in the animal world. And
Oh.
so this powerful, majestic, graceful female mountain lion coming to me and presenting herself to me just felt like a very big affirmation and nod from the universe of like, yeah, you're doing this single mom thing, but like you get to do it in a way that feels powerful to you.
I love that. The only thing that I have been told, and I honestly haven't like done any kind of true like, work with Angela or another shaman to say like I really want to find it. The
Mm.
first shaman that I went to when moving like was after I met Angela and
Hmm.
I started having calls with her. Um, and then I went to a shaman locally in Phoenix, and she told me that she really saw like bear's feet being that I was so
Mm.
sure-footed, but she never really acknowledged. And I honestly, we were talking, there's so much other stuff I wanted to hear from
Yeah.
and down and like because she was downloading all that stuff that the only thing I ever got that it was like that really kind of resonated is like that I'm very sure-footed like a black bear, grizzly bear. I've always loved polar bears, like really love polar bears.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if sometimes when we really like love an animal, if that's really like part of the spirit animal, like saying if you gravitate, much like if you gravitate towards a soul, towards somebody.
I think so because I know that so my daughter, she has always gravitated towards animals in general, which I think a lot of neurodivergent folks, like, we really connect with animals, period.
That's cool.
We speak the same kind of like language as them. But she has really been drawn to horses. Like, anytime, like, even a couple of months ago, we went to my aunt's house, kind of like out in rural Oregon, and Ivy just kind of disappeared. And I was like, where is she? And I went outside, and she had walked across my aunt's property to the fence line where there are a bunch of big draft horses hanging out. And like, draft horses are big, powerful creatures. They're huge. And here she was, this little 9-year-old, just hanging out at the fence, and they're all crowded right there, like just nuzzling on her and loving on her. And she's always been drawn to them. She's done horse riding lessons. She has worked with someone who does equine therapy, and she's just, her entire energy shifts when she's around horses. It grounds her. She speaks their language, and horses are drawn to her too. Like, anytime we're anywhere with horses, they immediately come over to her. So I really do think that if you have a strong love and connection to a certain type of animal or creature, whether it's birds, something aquatic, a lot of people, it's dolphins, I think that really you do have a special spiritual connection with them. There's something about them as an archetype for you that you have lessons you can learn from.
We have to have Ivy come down here because we have Clydesdale horses, and I said hi to them this morning, and they were both, I was just scratching them on either side and then gave them some carrots, and I was listening to them chew on their carrots. I'm totally going to take a video for you because it's the cutest, like, just hearing them, like crunching. It is so stinking cute, but these two are just like, they just let me love on them. But I'm not a horse person per se, but I really appreciate and value how gentle and they are calming for me. But more importantly, they're an animal that I get to enjoy while I'm here in Utah. So it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, for me, birds are definitely my guides. That's, the reoccurring theme I've heard from Angela and Bailey, and just like how it shows up in my life. Anytime I'm looking for some kind of affirmation or sign, like blue herons will fly over me in the most random of places where I would not expect to see them. Like, I'll be driving through a like high mountain desert where really herons don't really hang out in high mountain desert area, but I'll be driving through and one will just fly over my car. And so it's
so what do birds in general sort of encompass? Like, is there something that sort of weaves for like
there's a lot of lessons to be learned from birds, and there's so many different types of birds that you can learn. Like, they each represent something different as an archetype, but in general, I think about birds as being very creative. They build nests. They're builders, and they're creative. They're also playful. Birds are really playful. When you sit and observe them, they're just constantly moving, and they have this playful energy to them. And then there's a lot of birds like the herons, the fishing birds, who are just so patient, and they wait for hours to catch something, and they're just so intentional and dedicated. So just, any animal, any creature, if you sit and observe it for a while, you're going to learn something about life from observing it.
So when we like talk about rewilding and rewild, like what comes to your mind when you, because we follow that gal on Instagram.
Rewilding for Women, Sabrina. Yeah.
She's
yes, I love her content.
Intense.
And she talks about this too in her podcast, that there's a lot of people who reach out and tell her that they hated her energy and her voice when they first heard her, because she's intense, because she's channeling. You can see it, you can feel it. She is channeling, and she gets passionate about it. And so at first I didn't really know how to intake her, because it was, startling to my system to hear the ringing of truth in such an intense way. But the more I listened to it, and the more I started working with some of her programs, and being a part of her Facebook page, where people are very supportive of each other in this process, like, I have taken so much from her content. And she speaks a lot about the rewilding of like it's using archetypal energy for women to give themselves permission to be wild and free and creative and passionate, and to stop hiding themselves. And I think there's a lot of women trying to connect with that right now. I know I even this week, I have a friend who's in the process of going through divorce, and she asked me this week, she was like, point me in the direction of like, how can I tap into like deep, wild, feminine energy and move some of these things through, and like feminine rage, and like, so I think it's really a space that's giving permission to feel everything that we feel and embody it, and embody what it means to be a woman.
Yeah, we're like,
Specifically talking to women,
no, totally. Like, I edit myself sometimes. I mean, you have to out in like a business world, but less so, more and more. Like, I love that my current company, God, I love my boss, and they're so cool. They're looking through like these dresses to wear as team dresses, and then they go, okay, Michelle, but don't worry, you don't have to wear the dress. I'm like, well, thank you, because I am not going to wear the dress. The only way I can be myself at a trade show is like with my Chucks on or my Vans, but I said I'm happy whatever color we land on. Like, I will get the matching suit version or pants version with a vest or something to that effect. So, and they're like, that's perfect. Like, so I love that. I think as I've gotten further along in my career, I realized the less that I had to be acceptable. Like,
hmm
I'm always kind and gracious, and in a corporate setting and work settings, very much emotionally set, into that, like the etiquette of work. And I like I've never been called on HR, nothing's like that.
Yeah.
So I do watch my P's and Q's just from a state of being gracious and like, having a certain etiquette around things. But I think in my life, I haven't had to edit myself too much. What about you?
For me, it's a very multifaceted thing because I spent, the first 36 years of my life living as an undiagnosed neurodivergent person. And so,
Yeah, yeah.
and then also having a traumatic childhood. And so in a way, I've had the experience of constantly editing myself and masking myself to the world, but I didn't always have the understanding of that and the terminology to name it for what it was. Um, and so it's been a very interesting experience of, especially in the process of post-divorce, so going through divorce and post-divorce, of really trying to wild myself again, rewild myself and what that means, but then also kind of reconciling that with the masking I've done my entire life as a neurodivergent person and what that means for me. So I think, yeah, really kind of right now I'm on this journey where now more than ever, I am asking the question for myself of what does it mean for me to be fully unmasked and to be my full authentic self. And the more I lean into that, the more I'm doing therapy and I am talking about that in therapy. And I'm actively in my day-to-day life trying to give myself the space to be unmasked. I'm finding that for me, that means people are starting to experience that I'm actually a really funny person.
I think
Like,
you're funny. You crack me up a
yeah,
lot.
like for example, yesterday, I had the experience of, I did a wedding yesterday and I found myself just feeling so comfortable with this family and the people at this wedding, the bridal party, that, I find myself throughout the day, like joking with one of the groomsmen. And we had this kind of like running joke throughout the day where he was like, "You guys, she's a professional creeper." Because every time he looked up, I was like photographing him cooking or like doing all these things. And we just had this, and that sounds like so, maybe other people that just seems like so normal to have that kind of rapport with people and just like be yourself authentically that way. But, you know, for me, I realized yesterday as I was driving home, I've not always felt safe to be my funny, like witty, respond to someone and have this kind of rapport and like exchange happening. And yesterday at the wedding, three different people came to me and they approached me and they said, "Hey, we just want to tell you, like, you bring the best energy to weddings. Like, your energy is just like so good and you're just like so playful and creative. And like, we can tell that you love doing what you do." And so I'm in this space of realizing for the first time in my life that I am starting to feel comfortable being myself in more spaces where for so long I was only that authentic self with the people closest to me.
Well, I think we naturally, when you're a codependent, people pleaser, like we start to we shrink ourselves in so many ways. I mean, I
Yeah.
think making decisions from like instinct rather than like obligation,
Mhm.
I think that is like a good distinctive difference in like like unshrinking yourself and becoming more wild and untamed and
Yeah.
it's like I think it's interesting. And I think do you find yourself like I definitely do, like I create space for that unstructured play or like just being able to rest in that space.
Yeah, I'm still working on that. Right now I'm on a 2 week solo time where my kids are with their other parent for 2 weeks. And the first couple of days of it was really disorienting for me because it's so easy for me to get caught up in the the busyness of being a mother, while also juggling trying to be a provider and all the different things I have to, all the different hats that I wear, that sometimes I don't always give myself the space to just relax and rest and play. And I'm better at it than I used to be. But the first couple of days with my kids gone was disorienting because I'd been in this like just bubble with them of being mother and holding space for them, that when they were gone, I didn't know what to do with myself. And it was
Mhm.
very disorienting. And I've learned this week that even despite all of the healing work that I've done for myself and the ways, I'm so good at being alone. But even within that being alone, I still have a hard time letting myself rest
Mm.
and lean into joy and
Yeah,
playfulness.
that is very clear because you had a cold the first 2 days.
It was so interesting. Like I started getting a cold the day or two before my kids left, and then literally within an hour or two of them leaving, it hit me really, really hard. Like it wiped me out. Like I had this to-do list of I thought I was gonna clean my garage, accomplish all these things while my kids were gone. But this intense like fatigue, mental and physical fatigue, hit me so hard that I basically couldn't get off my couch for 3 days.
I mean, because I was like, just take the day. And you're like, I have so many things I want to get done.
And that was hard for me. And what I had to realize myself as I leaned into the resting and letting myself do that was that, I have a nervous system that has been essentially, like, for most of my life was just living in a constant state of fight or flight, and that's not typical. Like we all have experienced fight or flight, freeze, fawn, like on a daily basis we experience that. But like my nervous system was just living in that all the time and it was never coming back to a baseline. And so realizing that my need to constantly do and be busy and the inability to let myself enjoy the rest and I feel guilty about it, is a trauma response. And so having that recognition this week of, oh, okay. It's okay for me to give myself permission to just really truly rest. I clearly need it. My body needs it. My mind needs it. Um, I'm not gonna frantically clean my house. I'm not gonna clean my garage. I'm not gonna like burn myself out even deeper. I'm gonna lean into how I'm already burnt out and just rest. And it was a mental battle for me for a couple of days.
Well, because you're not able to like do the things you want to do, which kind of lights you up, where you get into, different things and create. It also squashes that creative center, it's like reconnecting your body through movement, or nature or whatnot. It's like I think there's all these ways that you can rewild yourself, but if you're sick, then the only rewilding is what an animal would need when it's sick, and that
I
is to
was just
literally
gonna
just
say,
rest.
like, there are certain animals that hibernate all winter.
Right.
They're replenishing. And, in hindsight now, I'm like, I'm so grateful that I had those days to just replenish myself this week, because by the time I got to doing this wedding yesterday, I was in such a regulated, calm, replenished state that I was able to show up as my best self at this wedding. And if I hadn't had those couple of days, I think I might have overworked myself all week and I would have showed up to this wedding in that space of being overworked, burnt out, not feeling well, all of that. So like there, like you said, there's a wilding in allowing yourself to rest and nurture. Because when you look at animals, like the way animals interact with the world is so different than humans because animals take care of their basic needs and that's that. They exist.
Yeah, no matter what, like if they're hungry, nothing's getting in their way.
They're going to
They'll
eat. If they need to sleep, they're going to sleep. If
That's
they're
right.
sick, they take care. They hunker down. They're not pushing themselves through and forcing things. And so, I think there's a lot to be said for getting back to the basics. And I know I'm going to butcher this quote, but I was actually listening to a song on a heart chakra playlist this week, and there was this one piece where there's kind of like some Hertz music playing, and then a male voice came on, and he was talking about how, as humans, if we keep our needs simple, we get closer to peace.
I agree.
And
That's
that
why,
really hit home for me this week.
well, I think that's where this whole Maria condoing your life, it really is about dumping so much of the external around us, even if it's not the external people, it's like external things. It's like, and
Yeah.
going a little bit more minimalist, like, or the whole tiny house movement. Like by going tinier, we actually live a bigger life because we have less to clean, we have less to maintain. Everything has its spot. So you finish with that spoon, you wash it and you put it back. Like you don't have 10 spoons, you don't have 100 plates anymore because you're like you've downsized. And I think that's part of like the beauty of like not having so much to take care of, like having a smaller wardrobe. I've heard people say a number of times, especially at trade shows, when we sometimes it's just really slow. It's like the hurry up and wait game, and we all just sit around and talk a little bit in
Yeah.
the aisles, and it's like, oh yeah, I got down to this, like 50 pieces, and now my life is so much easier. And I don't care that people might see the same thing twice, or I don't care.
Mhm.
Like for them, it just gave them so much peace. It created more space for the
Oh,
rewilding.
I'm very much that way that, and especially being neurodivergent, the simpler I can make my life,
Yeah.
the more my brain flourishes. And so having a simple wardrobe, having a simple organized home where I know where everything goes and having less stuff, but then also like having less mental load as well,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know? And so I really think there's a lot to be said as humans. Like, the busier we make ourselves, the more we push, push, push to do, do, do. I think the
Hmm.
further away we get from our authenticity.
I agree. I think like so maybe a question for you is like, what's the difference between being sort of unhinged and then and unleashed?
I kind of see them as being the same thing.
Hmm. Say more.
I mean, I guess if you think of unleashed, if you think of that, I'm just really going to take this down to like the actual word nitty gritty here. Unleashed. Okay, so you're wearing a leash. Who's holding the leash? To me, that sounds like someone else is giving you permission to be
Hmm.
yourself.
Hmm.
Whereas unhinged, it's like you're just spilling forth.
Yeah.
And that's coming from you. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. I kind of like, I think they could be very similar, but like maybe one is, are you seeking permission to be yourself from other people or outside sources? And maybe that's the unleashed, but unhinged is like you giving yourself deep permission to just be yourself and show up.
Now you mentioned like spiritual archetypes.
Yeah.
So like you have the wild woman, right? Wild man or wild one. You have, and I'm curious which one you resonate with most. The healer, the alchemist, the wanderer, seeker, pilgrim, the priestess and the mystic, the shadow dancer, and then there's the trickster, the oracle, sage, and then the earth keeper.
Mm.
Do any of those, and then also, hold on, do any of those resonate for you? One, I'm sure they do. And can we pull multiples in for our multidimensional spiritual self?
Absolutely. I think, archetypes are just that. There's something that we can resonate with to learn something about ourselves. And so I think that there's going to be an ebb and flow. At one stage in life, you may resonate with one more than others, and then that might shift and change in different spaces of your life. There's also like the archetype. There's so many different archetypes out there, but there's like the archetype of, maiden, mother, and crone as women move through these chapters of their life. And there's going to be archetypes within that even resonate. So someone may, resonate with being, a priestess in their maidenhood, but then they move into the crone years and they're, an earth keeper or a healer, so I think it changes. But for me, like very much like alchemist is speaks to me, because what is an alchemist? An alchemist is someone who takes something and turns it into something else.
Yeah, transforms pain
Transforms
into power.
Yes. And so looking at my life as someone who had, prolonged trauma, who is CPTSD, like that is complex post-traumatic stress syndrome, where I've had prolonged exposure to trauma over my childhood and into adulthood. You're presented with a choice when you experience trauma. You can let that consume you and basically make you a victim, or you can alchemize it. You can use it to grow and heal, and then turn around and share that with other people. And so for me, I am an alchemist. I have taken everything that's happened to me in my life, and I'm able to then connect with other people because I understand how they feel. So now I'm able to help women go through divorce because I know what it's like to go through divorce. I can sit and talk with someone about growing up in a cult and what it's like to remove yourself from that and go through the very disorienting experience of orienting yourself to life after a cult, because I've lived it.
So I feel like you can be in that alchemist space, but then you move into the healer space when you're like being present with somebody and connecting with that care.
Yeah. And I do resonate with healer, but I think even more so like priestess is what I really identify with. That's the big one for me. There's a lot of women,
So
especially
you moving between the worlds.
Yeah, a lot of people speak to the witch wound. A lot of women experience feeling the witch wound, going back to when witches were persecuted. And throughout history, women who are healers have been persecuted for their ability to work with the natural world and heal others. And so a lot of women have what is called the witch wound, where they are healers, but they struggle to step into that because of that baggage they carry that doesn't necessarily belong to them, but it comes from the generations passed down. I've never resonated with that at all. I don't feel a call to that. What's always been kind of a wound for me is I identify with priestess energy, which is being an oracle, working with people to like work through the
using your
mysteries,
divine
through the
wisdom.
spirituality. You are, a priestess. What does a priestess do? A priestess is sharing wisdom, is initiating people into the sacred mysteries of life, higher knowledge, spirituality, intuition, all of that. And that's really resonated for me. So I've kind of I've had what I would call a priestess wound where, I grew up Christian. I grew up very conservative Christian, in a Christian cult, and Christianity took pagan priestesses and destroyed their temples. And there's a priestess wound where Christianity took paganism and murdered it, and took women who were powerful and who spoke and led and turned them into sinful creatures, and basically Christianity destroyed the power that women had in these spaces. And so there's a big wound in that. Like you can look at like just even now, in the late, we're in 2025, but like even in the last like 10 years, there's been a surge of more women becoming pastors and priests, within churches and spaces. And the
Yes.
fact that they're just now able to do that, like that's a priestess wound, you know?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
socially like opening that back up of like healing that, allowing women back into these spaces where they get to like
Yeah.
be spiritual leaders. And
Yes.
so for me, that's something I very much identify with. What out of all of those would you identify with?
I'm kind of feeling more of the wanderer seeker in
Mm.
many ways, but also the healer. And because I think they kind of work, I think most of these works kind of together, obviously. It's kind of like the attachment piece, it's like we're we're we are striving to be in some space of secure, but like flow and intermingle between others. So I like the idea that based on where we are in our journey in our spirit on the real spiritual path, that we can blend components depending upon where we are, or we can literally each one could be a chapter in the book also, and depending upon. But I definitely feel like the whole being driven by curiosity, and I just love asking questions. It's like I just can't get enough of like wanting to understand and sort of the unattachment to the certainty of those things, but more like anchored in just like being sure-footed, like in my growth, like being anchored in that. So I definitely feel like it's not the destination, it's the journey for me. Like it's all about the nuts, the goodness, the muck, the messy middle, however, the dark nights of the soul. Like I like all of that.
Yeah, yeah, you do.
I
You really
really do. I know I do. I really love all that. So I think
do.
it's kind of interesting because I never thought of things in an archetype, and that's why I love when we pick new topics instead.
I love archetypes and I do a
No,
lot of
you do,
archetypes.
but I just
I
haven't really
Yeah.
dug into it like you do.
I do a lot of archetypal work. Like I know coming out of my divorce, like I carried a lot of anger towards the father of my children, just, and towards men in general. I carried a lot of just anger. And I remember having a dream. I had a dream about the goddess Kali, like in Indian culture, Um, the goddess Kali is actually, goddess of war, but also of love. And she has a rage to her. And actually, Rewilding for Women has a Kali workshop where you work with this archetype and you
Mm,
work with anger and love. And why is she angry? She's angry. And so many of the pictures depict her as like this war goddess who's going to cut off heads. Well, she's going to cut through to the heart of things because she's angry that we're not showing up as our authentic selves and we're hurting each other.
hmm.
It's anger from a space of love.
Yeah.
And when I worked with that, I just realized like all of the anger I was carrying towards the person I was divorcing was because I had shown up from a space of love and was being told that I was loved, but I was being lied to. And so it was sacred rage of this man couldn't meet me in the space of showing up authentically as his whole
Hmm.
true self and not hurt other people. Like his love, the what he calls love hurts other people. And
Yeah.
so my rage was like, I need to cut through this and expose this and work with this. And when I was able to do that with that workshop, like I was able to move all that rage through, and it was so beautiful and helpful. So I love archetypal work. I love it.
Well, I think like I love the thought of rewilding, and like it isn't about becoming someone new, it's about the remembering, right?
Yeah, it's unpacking all of the baggage that you have, armored yourself with.
Hmm. Yeah, because it's not rebellion against the structure. It's rebellion. It's like a return to this like rhythm of like when we were younger and like when we were out in the woods and just like again, like just enjoying what life is in front of us and sort of being like, we're gonna like I remember my brother and I at this place. It's Griffith Park, but it's like the Griffith Park Observatories on top. And my mom was like taking photos up there and Kate and Kenny and I were just like going through these like this little jungle of like overgrown stuff. And I think there's something really fun about that type of play where
Yeah.
it's like returning to like breath, to the body, to our own like kid-like instincts and to the knowing that lives like behind, beneath your shoulds, or the to rewild is to like reclaim your wholeness, to
Yeah.
laugh louder, to like be unapologetic, and then like not necessarily caring or fitting into some tidy 5-year plan sometimes, but allowing like each day to unfold and giving yourself, like we were talking about, permission to be real, be intuitive, be untamed. And like, it just feels like, like what I said to you is like running barefoot. Like it feels like running barefoot and being like just messy, but messy and magnificent, right? Like
Well, I mean, the
fluffy.
humanity is chaos, but it's
Yeah,
chaos is people hear chaos and they think negative, but chaos is beautiful because so much can come out of chaos, and
agreed.
we are a chaotic energy. Human beings are constantly moving, growing, expanding. That is the very definition of chaos. And
No,
so,
totally.
I think that when people avoid the chaos and they avoid going within to get still in the chaos, that's why so many people struggle to grow and
Yep.
change. Like I'll hear women asking, oh, I was, and this was my experience. I was with someone for 8 years who refused, and ultimately the reason why we didn't work out was because he refused to grow and work on himself and acknowledge the things that he was doing that hurt other people, and then actually change them. And the reason people don't want to grow, and you'll hear so many women saying, I left someone, or the relationship didn't work out because I started to grow and change and he stayed the same, or she stayed, whoever it is that they were with, my partner didn't come on the journey with me. That's because it's the hardest thing in the world to do is to sit with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people are running from themselves.
Mm-hmm. They really are.
They're looking, that's why you have people who that's why we have addiction. That's why people struggle with alcoholism. That's why people struggle with gambling. Everything external, they're seeking all these external reasons to not sit with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because the most uncomfortable, painful thing you can ever do is sit with yourself, but it's also the best thing you can ever do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Japanese have a whole, you know, practice around stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes struggle sitting still, but more lately, I'm able to really enjoy the meditation and just quiet down, because it's amazing how much comes up to the surface when it's not having to filter, all the outside noise.
Yeah, that's why I identify with kind of like the priestess energy, the priestess archetype, because as a neurodivergent person, my brain, I mean, I'm ADHD, and my brain, a lot of people hear ADHD and they think hyperactive and they think like physically hyperactive. But for a lot of women, it is a mental hyperactivity. We can look calm on the outside, calm and quiet on the outside,
Yeah,
but we
you're
are
not a
hyperactive.
5-year-old boy, right? Like
Yeah.
5-year-old boys with ADHD, they don't understand the whole
Their bodies
processing.
can't be still,
Yeah,
but
their bodies can't be still, right?
for women, hyperactivity usually generally shows up as a mental hyperactivity. And for me, it's been very powerful to you like tap into that priestess kind of energy and archetype of getting still inside, like really getting still and getting past that mental clutter, because that is where like my deepest truth comes from. That is where my
Mhm.
deepest creativity comes from. That is like where my well of wisdom comes from, is getting quiet. And for me that looks like it feels like a very sacred thing. That's why I like the priestess word, because it's a very sacred thing for me. Like I'm very intentional with it. Like it's ritual for me.
Yeah.
I love
I
that.
mean, I do too. And I think that's part of the reason why I love bringing Caden here to Utah. Because, like, my mom, like, I feel like the three of us kind of go through this little rewilding happening, because it's so sweet. Like,
Well, you literally have the three archetypes right there. So you've got the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Like you have that right there. You those generational things right there. So you get to learn from each other and flow with each other in that space.
it's so true. And it's really cool how different we are, but how we do flow pretty effortlessly for the most part. But it's like when we all, like today, we're probably going to take a drive and go up to this one little river area. And we have the tubes and we might, I'm going to blow the tubes up and so we can hang out and but there is something like the minute you get into the water and you're out in the middle of this like river and creek and there's just something that happens. It's like everything else kind of does turn off and you're able to be like playful again. And I just think honestly, I think America has a big issue around us having to work and work and work.
Or as Americans, especially, I think in general, like, I think cities are especially a showing of this, but, like as in the US as a culture, like we're fighting our wildness. We're always fighting our wildness, but like it wants to emerge. It wants to
does.
emerge everywhere because like, why do people collect houseplants?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have cities where there's an emphasis on having beautiful parks, a park in every neighborhood?
Right.
Because we're fighting our wildness, but we want to. We want to be part of it because we are part of nature, but we've disconnected from it in a lot of ways. But we're trying to find our way back to it. That's why we do things like collect houseplants.
That's
Or
right.
we garden. I have a friend.
You're bringing nature in.
I have a friend in Portland. He has an apartment and he has a porch on his apartment, and he has essentially turned his apartment and his porch into a jungle. You walk into his house and he has like he has a huge garden, like a micro garden on his porch. Like he grows his own food in a small 1-bedroom apartment with a porch. And you walk in and it feels like that. You're like, it feels like a jungle. It smells kind of earthy in a good way. And like he has a worm system and a composting system. And like it's just, we are humanity. Like we are craving that connection with nature, but we're also as a society fighting it.
Yeah. I mean, it's really sweet because again, Kaden today, and she's a Virgo, like she doesn't realize yet that she needs this for her reset. She doesn't realize that it's actually going to be important for her. So she
My
was
Virgo needs that too all the time.
yeah, she was just like, "Can I walk the area? Can I walk around, this neighborhood?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's no cars really. Like, it's all safe and very, kind of secluded from a big street because it's just a small, sweet city and it's a little bit rural." And she just likes it. She's like, "I want to walk every day." I go, "Good, just go out and do it."
Yeah, I
And
love that.
yeah, so and then I think she slept really well too. So I think all of it, it all kind of has that trickle effect to it. But
I am going backpacking this week and I am so stoked because I'll be sleeping in my tent and I sleep. The best sleep I get is
yep,
when I'm sleeping in a tent out in nature.
so
I
good.
know a lot of people hate it, but like I love it. It's honestly the best sleep I get.
I sleep the best when I can open my windows when it does tip down to, between the 40s and the 50s, kind of thing. It's as long as I have that fresh air coming through, it is so nice. And
Yeah.
to get out of the Phoenix heat for the next couple of weeks, I'm so stoked. Like it's so beautiful here. So anyways, I love you, friend.
I love you
Get your
too.
rewilding on. Become get out in nature, do whatever you need to do, play, be joyful, whatever you need to do.
I agree.
Give ourselves permission to get wild.
Be wild. Be your wild self this
That's
week.
right. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode today, be sure to subscribe and share because what do we say, baby?
Sharing is caring.